There we go. Great. So, hi, I'm Funds. I recently joined Datera as a strategic analyst, a strategic advisor, actually. Besides Datera, I also am part of Evo Ventures, which is a small seed funding company. And I'm an advisor to Schuberg Phyllis, where I worked 9.5 years and actually built their cloud together with my partner in crime there, Roland. And we started doing that about 6 years ago. So I've been involved in the community for about 6 years, wrote a lot of code, touched most of the parts, networking, storage, hypervisors, you name it, all the subsystem, everything on top. Our initial goal to start doing CloudStack was to get away from infrastructure completely. That's a different story. I'll not bore you to death with that one. I'll get to that later. So right now I'm working for Datera. It's a company that actually does cost-effective elastic block storage at scale. Well, it kind of sums it up here. There are a couple of guys around here that actually work for Datera, so if you've got any questions, you can just revert to them or ask me if you're interested in storage at scale. The problem clouds usually is you don't bump into issues until you get scale. So a lot of people start small, don't have issues. When it becomes larger, you'll get into problems, and you'll realize what you kind of need to do. So I'd like to start off with Clint. The good, the bad, and ugly. And I think that kind of describes what the ecosystem was like 5 years ago, if we look at cloud orchestration platforms. The funny thing is, I think we're back to square one with that. If we're looking at what's going on in public clouds and the reversion we're seeing of people moving from public clouds again to private clouds, we're seeing a flare-up of all these same issues that were 5 or 6 years ago, where people had to make a choice, what the heck am I going to do? Am I going to go with OpenStack? Am I going to do CloudStack? I'm going to do something else. We've got Kubernetes now. Can I run that? So all these old paradigms and all these old questions are popping up again, and people are, getting ready for decision time again, which is really interesting in a way. So if we're looking at CloudStack has been the underdog for, as long as I remember. Open sourcing it was step one when Cloud.com was bought by Citrix. Mark Hinkle actually used this as one of the phrases on one of the first collabs we had. Why join the Navy if you can be a pirate? Well, the pirate's more fun, so being the underdog is always more fun. Besides that, I think there's a very interesting thing about our community. Our community is led by developers, which is really surprising. If you look at other communities are not led by developers. They're led by people that are screaming in a room at developers, which is a really weird thing if you think about it. So there's a couple of developers or 3 people that actually use the product, and there's 35 people or 50 people that are screaming at them what they should be doing with the product, which is great. And most of them are actually vendors trying to sell into that ecosystem. So if you look at our community, we actually have discussions about, is this 3 or is it 4? That's the level of our discussions. If you look at what we did yesterday in the circle, it was really good. And the hardest discussion we had was on if we should be using Jira or not and how we should be using it, which I thought was wonderful. Not a discussion about code style, not a discussion about, what should we improve, what shouldn't we improve. No arguments about that. We all agreed that we have to improve certain things, and those are fundamentals to how we can onboard new people in our community and how we can get people to use our product and how we can get people into that. So we're in alignment there, and that's a wonderful thing. If you look at other communities, they're not. They're all over the place, and people have different motives for different reasons, and they will not want to align because they're trying to push their own agenda, which is really wonderful here. I mean, we can debate if it's 3 or 4, and I think we're both right, and we'll end up in the middle somewhere, 3.5. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Another thing I think is really wonderful is that we've actually accelerated so fast that people are complaining about the fact that we're too fast. I mean, wow, that's a luxury problem. We're doing too many releases. People can't keep up. Can we slow it down a bit? I mean, holy shit, have you ever heard that before? I certainly haven't, it's like, wow. So I'm actually happy with that luxury problem. And to be honest, as I would like to see that we do bi-weekly releases, I think that'd be awesome. I realize it's not realistic for everyone. It is what it is, and that's fine. You compromise, you agree, and you find a way to do your own thing and still contribute to the community. I think it's great. I think those are wonderful things. Quality has always been a topic. We're working on that. It's improving. I think the work that Will mentioned with the bubble from Schuberg, and we're doing the CI/CD stuff, the ideas Will have, the ideas Shape Blue have, if we combine those things, we can have a really powerful platform to accelerate even further and create that quality platform that we want. I mean, the quality is already really high. Stability is good. But there are still some nasty bugs that bite you in the ass every now and then, which are really horrible. I think also if we get the CI/CD off the ground, it'll be easier for people to participate and to actually add code or invite people in to use those tools to actually contribute to our platform. So there's this thing called leadership, and if we're looking at the CloudStack community, we've had a history of really strong leaders. We had Chip Childers initially. He was a really strong guy, really down to earth. Well, we had some happy little accidents in between. Then we had Seb, and Seb was a really wonderful leader and really got it on the rails with doing the GitHub thing, making sure we get all the goodies in with the acceleration. He helped Remy out a lot while Remy was being, when Remy was the release manager, and which eventually helped Will as well, and got us on the road to doing faster releases, better quality releases, and accelerating that process. We're not there yet, but we're improving. It's good. I think besides that leadership inside our community, we should have thought leadership outside our community and actually go to places and talk about what we're doing and how we're doing that and why we're doing that. I mean, why not go to an OpenStack conference and talk about how we actually do QA and why our QA works? I mean, their QA sucks ass. It's fucking horrible. I mean, I've been developing some stuff on OpenStack recently, and it's very painful. I mean, it is very, very painful. And I'm not trying to be an asshole, but because it's so disjoint, it makes it very hard to actually get something really working and then thoroughly testing it through. Mirantis has done a great job with the Fuel QA stuff, but it's still very, very, very hard. And that brings me to the next problem. Why do people choose for something that is so loosely coupled? Why do people make decisions in what they choose? And why don't we see the decisions people make when they choose for CloudStack? So if we look at the reason why people usually choose for OpenStack, it's because they're admins. An admin is sitting in the basement, keeps infrastructure up and running, and looks for a more efficient, nicer way to do that. I'm not trying to be a dick, just stating the obvious. The problem with these people is that they like to tinker. I used to be one, so I know I like to tinker. I like, to go there and, get a spanner out, do some shit in the car. It's fun, it's good. Change the oil, all that stuff. People like to do that. The funny thing about CloudStack is that the people that use it are either developers or they're enterprise users. And enterprise users don't like to tinker, and developers need to know how stuff works. If you look at the typical admin does not like to pry open a Java file and figure out what the hell is going on in it, especially if it's 350K lines of code. So we're appealing to a certain group because we have a certain complexity. If we unravel the complexity and actually make it simpler for people to understand and more obvious, we will attract that group as well. And that's some food for thought, I think. So if we're looking back right now, we're actually seeing that there are two things going on. We're back to the David and Goliath story, where we always end up, OpenStack versus CloudStack, or now we've got Mesos versus Kubernetes, and we've got all these things going on. It's always the same story. There's always the verses. And I love what Ian said. Analysts are stupid idiots because they always say the same thing. They're morons in general. There are some smart ones, but in general, we're generalizing, so that's good. We can do that. Like most of them are idiots. So there's another thing going on there as well. We're seeing the submergence of platform as a service, not platform as a service, but bare metal as a service, so the bottom end. So if we're looking at companies like Packet, they're doing bare metal as a service. There's a company in Ukraine called Cherry Servers, they do it too. And these companies are growing like wildfire because of the submergence of container workloads. People think they don't need VMs anymore, so they will start using that, and it attracts developers. Which brings me to the real point, is that everything we do should be workload-centric. If you don't know what users are doing on top of your platform, there's no use for your platform. So everything we do, and that's what I like what Shape Blue is doing, together with Seb, making containers a native workload on top of our orchestration platform. If you do that, you are catering to the workload of a consumer, and your consumer will consume your product because, it makes sense to do so. It's not a hindsight thing. It's something that should be integrated with what you're doing. OpenStack, we're like, oh yeah, we do containers too. We don't know really what they are, but we do them. You can do them on top of us. Woo, we're sexy. It doesn't really work that way. You should think about what the workload is, workload centricity, and implement it in a native way, consumable for those users. Which brings me to the customer-consumer question. How do we get people around the table that are actually consuming the product that are not here now? I think Accelerate said it beautifully. I think, Ian said it beautifully. We've got a fuck ton of people using this, and they're not here. They're not not with us talking about the problems they see with the product and what we could improve. We're sitting here all together, and we can all nod yes at each other, and we're in violent agreement, which I love, by the way. But it doesn't take away the fact that there's a huge blank spot we're not seeing. And I wish we could appeal to those people to be here with us and in some way contribute to the platform and teach us what we're doing wrong, what we should improve. Which is actually my final thought. If everybody that's here could think about, I know someone that's using this product, and I'll poke him next time to come. That would be wonderful, because we'll double in numbers, or we'll triple in numbers, and we get more information out of the community about what we should be changing and what we should do better. I think there's a really, really big thing going on with people that use CloudStack and build CloudStack that say, I've built IP around CloudStack, and I'm not going to open source or not contribute it back because it's my IP. These people are forgetting that they picked up a piece of work where I think 200 or 300 people have put their blood, sweat, and tears in and have worked their asses off for, and you're claiming you built some IP on top. Please, please think about that. And please come here and share with us what you're doing. I think it'd be wonderful. And that's my final thought. If you have any ideas, please let me know. I'm very curious.